If you watch Sinners and you wanted to read a book where the Klan gets their ass kicked some more, then I think I have a recommendation for you. Greetings, royalty. My name is Olivia and welcome back to my realm. I feel like it's been an eternity since I posted on this channel. Even though I think it's only been like a month, I've recorded so much content, and even though I've been uploading shorts, I haven't been uploading long form videos. And just quickly, I want to explain why. Roughly 7 months ago, I was let go, aka laid off from my job, which created a tailspin in my life where I became late on Kickstarters, I became late on book deadlines, I became late on shutting down my small press, like just a lot of proverbial hit the fan. And it has been a mess. Well, it was a mess until I found a new job roughly 2.5, 3 months ago. I'm loving my new role, but it is highly stressful. It's the first time I've ever been a manager, and just, life has been a whirlwind. But I have a little bit of downtime right now before I get to working on some of those deadlines I'm talking about. And I just want to kind of fangirl about Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring not one, but two Michael B. Jordans, cast as the main leads, the gangster smokestack twins. Now, it's always a blessed time when I can spend Easter Sunday with my family. We had kind of like a mini fish fry. It was just a great time, just a really blessed day. But we did go to the theaters to see Sinners of all movies, and I was just overcome by the tapestry of African-American history, folklore, religion, traditions. It was just really amazing. Now, it did have some aspects I did not like, but for the most part, I would say that movie was a 5 out of 5 stars. And that's rare for me to say with any movie, but you know, Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, they're an all-star team between Black Panther and Creed. They have just been knocking out of the park. So funny enough, when I got home, I ended up getting recommended a video by Shelby in the book club. I'll link that down in the description. And she basically did a list of books to read after watching Sinners. And it made me think about some TBR books I have on my bookshelf, and one that I'm intending to buy is part of like my 25 books to read in 2025 that are all Black historical horror that I think you should read after watching Sinners. And me too, because these are all TBR books. These aren't books I've already read. And I thought it was appropriate to stand by my Black shelf. This is all my Black literature that isn't like strongly one thing, whereas the stack I'm about to talk about is all genre fiction, because I really love that this was at its heart a vampire movie, and I love paranormal, spooky horror. It's just everything I really love. And so to get Black historical with vampires was just chef's kiss. So I'm not going to get for too much longer because I really want this to be one of my shortest videos so I can get it edited quick, get it up on my channel. Thank all the almost 70 people that are subscribed. If you're not subscribed already, you know how YouTubers do, booktubers included. Please like and subscribe if you want to get more videos like this. But thank you so much for the people that are already here and subscribed. I hope you enjoy me finally uploading something longer than a 3-minute short. And sorry, my cat Gabby wanted to make an appearance. Now you're not going to look at the camera? She's a menace. Now, before I talk about the list, I'm going to talk very quickly about the one book I have read that was kind of in my mind the whole time. It is historical fiction, but it is not paranormal, genre fiction, horror, or anything. So, but I did want to talk about it as a kind of like bonus book, and that is Segu by Maryse Condé. This is a seminal work. I actually read it in college during a Black literature class and loved it so much that recently during I think either thrift or book outlet sale, I brought a copy so I could have it in my collection. This story centers the Bambari people of the kingdom of Segu in Africa. It talks about the Islamification of the African continent as well as the opposing forces of Christianity. It talks about how these outsider religions came into the African continent and kind of illuminates that through the king's advisor in Segu and his 4 sons who end up becoming priests and griots and all types of things, basically telling this family history, this epic family history that mirrors the transformation of Africa and eventually the diaspora spread around the world. While this doesn't have any paranormal aspects, if you are really interested in the opening montage of Sinners, especially the griot aspect when, you know, Sammy was playing the music and you see all these different spirits all coming together from different vestiges of Chinese as well, but mainly African and African American culture, I think you'll really love this tapestry that Maryse Condé talks about in this book. Two other things that I think make this an interesting book as kind of like a bonus book on this list is that Maryse Condé was a native of Guadeloupe, which I believe is still like a territory. I don't really know the French term for it, but if you're American, you understand the concept of territories, aka colonial vestiges, colonial territories that America owns, like Puerto Rico. France has a very similar scheme. They were also colonists. And Guadeloupe is an island in the West Indies, and she was a native. So I think this French aspect is very interesting, and I think that's also why you get more of the Islamic perspective, and you also get just a different side of the diaspora that I always absolutely love, because at the end of the day, you know, I edited a whole volume of work, actually two. I'm sorry, I absolutely did not mean to plug during this video, but I just realized, I just ran downstairs, that two works that I edited is also kind of why I'm very interested in diaspora perspectives that are not American, being a Black American. And those two works are Africa Risen, A New Era of Speculative Fiction, edited by Cherie Renee Thomas, Ogunchove Donald Apeki, and me, Zelda Knight, under my pen name. That contains works from all these amazing authors that tell tales of sci-fi, fantasy, you name it, genre, speculative fiction. That is also a great read if you like Sinners as well as Dominion, an anthology of speculative fiction from Africa and the African diaspora, edited by me and Ogunchove again, and was a forward by Tenerife Dew, who has a wonderful story in Africa Risen, and some of the authors also cross over. So these two works, these two editorial works, kind of are the benchmark of my perspective when it comes to the diaspora working together and, you know, creating fiction and amazing stories. And part of what originally inspired me was actually the work of Segu when I set out to edit Dominion back in college. So I just kind of had that brain dump as I was recording this video, actually. And so kind of 3 bonus books now compared to the 5 I meant to talk about. Segu, Africa Risen, and Dominion, I think are great. Not particularly the vampire Black historical horror specifically, but Black works that I think are great if you love the historical and fanciful speculative nature of Sinners. And the second thing about Segu I wanted to talk about before I ran downstairs was that, if you didn't know, the term griot is not actually an African term. It is a French term, and something that Maryse actually taught me when I started reading her work back in college. And so I find that interesting too, right? That even when we're talking about African spirituality and African traditions, we're often using loanwords that aren't actually from the continent of Africa. They're not from native groups of the continent, right? And so I just thought that was also an interesting aspect. When I heard griot during the movie, I was like, you know, it made me think about Segu once again. Whew. Let me catch my breath. Maybe snack on this chocolate Easter egg of it. And get moving. Rapid fire, let's talk about the 5 Black historical horror books that I think you should read after watching Sinners. First up is a book that has not released yet, but I am super psyched to read when it does, and that is Pyschopomp and Circumstance by Eden Royce. The basic premise is that Fee St. Margaret is a woman of the Reconstruction era. If you don't know what Reconstruction is, it was a time frame after the Civil War where Black people started becoming part of leadership. They were joining like state houses and becoming wealthy doctors and merchants and, you know, basically entering American society after the Civil War, Reconstruction. However, things like the Klan and different things conspired to destroy Reconstruction, because please know, as a historian, I really do want to press this. Reconstruction didn't fail. Reconstruction was sabotaged. And this is why I'm very interested in a spooky tale set in Reconstruction that, at least from how I'm reading the synopsis, did not get sabotaged. We still have wealthy Black families and Black families pulling themselves out of poverty, no longer working on plantations and sharecropping, basically continuing slavery, which is a major aspect of Sinners. And yeah, I just love that we have Reconstruction era Black horror. And in this story, Fee is put in charge as the Pomp, aka the director of the funeral of her aunt. She travels to the town of Horizon and spooky stuff starts happening. I don't know much else other than that. I do not have an art copy, so I'm waiting like you're waiting to get my hands on this book. And just the cover is freaking amazing. It is gorgeous. Yes, it's partially a cover buy, but past the cover, the synopsis sounds bomb. Next up, we have a book that has more or less been on my TBR for almost nearly a decade. I think it came out in 2018, but that was around the time I really wasn't reading young adult fiction, and so I just never read it. But it has been on my mind for a while, and I got it on sale, I believe, Thrift Books or Book Outlet, my two bookish thrift shops online, and I said I'm finally going to get through it because I got both books in the duology. But for now, I am only recommending to read Dread Nation by Justina, Ireland, which is a story if you really love the vampire aspect, the paranormal horror aspect of Sinners. I think you'll love this book. It centers Jane McKean, who was born 2 days before the dead began rising at Gettysburg during the Civil War. Yes, this book is about zombies and zombie hunters like the mulatto main character. But another aspect of this book I think was important to talk about was the fact that Native Americans as well as colored people are sent to these battle schools so that the few can protect the many, aka they are used to fight the zombies where the white elite in the country presumably, if I'm remembering the gist of this book correctly, are not. And so I thought that was an interesting aspect as well because the Native American characters in Sinners didn't get a lot of screen time, but have been on my mind since I stopped watching the movie. If you watch Sinners and you wanted to read a book where the Klan gets their ass kicked some more, then I think I have a recommendation for you. And that is P. Djèlí Clark's Ring Shout, which centers around a movie I actually wrote about during my thesis, and I'm giving away a lot of myself right now, but I studied to be a historian. I am not currently practicing as a historian, but anyway, that's also why Sinners was a 5 out of 5. And that movie is Birth of a Nation that came out in 1915. One of the most racist movies to ever be filmed and also one of the most influential movies to ever be created. And I really can't say it better than the author says it in this one line. In America, demons wear white hoods. In this novel, the Klan basically becomes a demonic force that sweeps the nation after this film kind of just like possesses, like it's a curse that spreads across the land. Kind of like when vampires bite people and, spread vampirism. Anyway, the Klan basically wants to create the end times. Or the subtitle for this novel is actually Ring Shout or Hunting Ku Kluxes in the End Times, right? And so they bring about Armageddon. But in this story, Maryse Boudreaux and her ragtag gang of Klan killers get together to stop them and stop the end of the world. And reading from the author once again, armed with blade, bullet, and bomb, they hunt their hunters and send the Klan's demons straight to hell. I feel like if you just love the aspect of sticking it to white power that was in Sinners, you're going to love this novel, and I think I'm going to love it too. It's a 5-star prediction for me, and I do think it contains airships. I'm not sure if it's in a shared universe to The Black God's Drums that has a post-Civil War-esque kind of like world building as well, but this one's set in New Orleans. I don't know if these are in the same universe. The author writes in a shared universe for the Jinn universe, but all that to say, I love this little novella and I hope I love this novel. Moving right along, this is not as connected to Sinners per se, but if you were intrigued with the kind of just environment Sinners was in, or a lack of a better term, like just the rural South, I think you'll like this kind of Western horror that is Lone Woman by Victor LaValle. This novel centers around Adelaide Henry, who drags around this trunk and is known as the Lone Woman in all these like frontier places she goes to. She ends up in a town and basically horror happens. I don't get much from the synopsis itself. I did get it when I was subscribed to Book of the Month years ago and just never picked it up because I've talked about this in other videos, but I was in a years-long, yes, you heard that, was an S, years-long reading slump after some trauma effectively happened in my life. And I only recently got back to being able to read more than 1 to 2 books a year. I regularly used to read 100 books, and that's not even including comics like manga, etc. I was still reading a ton of manga, but just not nearly enough books, right? And so this has been sitting way too long on my TBR, and it did make me think just the aspect of like just being in the country combined with horror made me think this might be a good companion if you've already watched Sinners. And finally, I could not end off this list without giving you a actual vampire black historical horror, and that's going to be House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. Now, Alexis Henderson, she has 2 books out, I believe. Well, I think 3 now, because she has like Dark Academia that I can't remember the name of, but she debuted it was A Year of Witching, and then House of Hunger. Now, the reason why I picked up this book, it was really cheap at a bookstore, used bookstore. Hello, I like cheap books, I can't lie. You can see the mark right here, noting that it is I think they call it a remainder or book, where it's like overstock, they can't sell from big publishers. I'm getting fuzzy on the terms, but anyway, this dot tells you that it was pretty darn cheap. But the other aspect is that years ago, I published one of her short stories in Helios Quarterly, a kind of just like zine I had running, and I fell in love with her writing. And so I was so happy to see her get picked up by a big publishing house. And I just felt like this would be the perfect black historical horror to end off this little TBR wreck, which is really just me searching through my own TBR as well, but sharing those with you as well. And I also obviously couldn't end without a vampire book. The basic premise of this book is that Marion Shaw, I believe that's her name, she is invited or basically goes up north, right, to become a blood maid to the House of Hunger, a notorious hedonistic, I'm assuming, vampire den where human women basically give up their blood for their mistresses and masters. And I'm not sure if there's also men that are blood maids, blood servants, but all I do know is that Marion is one of them, and it just seems like a real good spooky read, decently short. I think I could finish it in 1 sitting or like 2 days if I had to break up like an audiobook or something. But all that to say, I am really excited to read this because I've only read a short story of hers and it blew me away, and so I think a novel is going to be, once again, chef's kiss. And if the connection is not obvious, Sinners is a vampire movie at its core. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that short and sweet video of my 5 black historical horror books that I recommend to read after watching Sinners. Directed by Ryan Coogler and starring Michael B. Jordan. I also have 3 bonus books that are not particularly directly related to the movie, but I think especially if you like the historical aspect, the diasporic aspect of it, I think you're going to really like them as well. And obviously I can't show one of them because it is Pyschopomp and Circumstance that is not out yet. It's coming out later this year, I believe October 2025. Now, as always, I have to ask a question to royalty and also our distinguished guests that have come to my realm to watch this video. Do you have any books not on my TBR that you recommend? Or are any of these books something you think I have to drop everything and read right now? I'm particularly interested, obviously, in black historical horror, but I'm also interested in Chinese works, Native American works that you think would be awesome as well, because those were big aspects of the movie as well. And also things that aren't particularly horror, right? I love anything about the black experience and about solidarity, and so I would love to add that to my ever-growing collection, or, you know, to be quite honest, it might already be on my bookshelf. With all that said, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time. Farewell for now. Bye.